Welcome to the Canadian power shift from partyocracy to constituency parliaments. Now, did you know that in 2011, 9.3 million eligible voters didn't vote in the elections? And that over 14 million young adults have never had the opportunity to have their say in any Canadian referendum, or let alone the fact that the provinces have never held regular referendums. Our parliamentarians define our democracy through our eligibility to have referendums. So what do referendums actually give us? But better yet, what do our present false democracy and the political party four-year election system do for us? Actually, not much when we truly look at it. All it mostly does, if we are to be honest, is to hand out a false sense of change, to keep us in bondage to their corrupt political party voting system. Giving us crumbs is not change. Giving the people their voice by allowing us to vote on all issues is change. But again, why do we have to wait until they give us permission or allow us to make decisions for our country? They say we have a democracy because we have the rights to referendum. But the reality is that they decide if and when we get a referendum and control the questions. A referendum every decade is not change. A referendum for each issue is change. So to get change and to give our consent in this country and for our consent to be recognized, we need to take matters into our own hands and not have to beg for their consent when we and the Indigenous nations should be the ones deciding what happens in Canada and not just by the few political elites. And again, looking at our present system, we constantly have to fight them on the environmental, constitutional, and human rights issues. There is so much that is being done, and all because our politicians and those in our governments give the approval for these things without our consent. What else do Canadians get by voting for a political party system that is obviously failing us decade after decade? The cost of living keeps rising, our political leaders take away and privatize our natural resources and social services, like the Bank of Canada debt, which was minimal in 1974 and then transferred to private banks and is now totally out of control. Then there is the further privatization of our healthcare, or they sell our Canadian institutions like the Wheat Board to the US Saudi Arabian Corporation. And now Premier Wynne is trying to sell off Hydro One in Ontario to international corporations, just like the feds want to do with Canada Post and other corporations. Our supposed leaders are making ludicrous international deals like FIPA, CETA, and the TPP, which will remove our own Canadian natural resources jurisdiction from each of our provinces, as we will only have one vote against 28 EU votes. What happened to Greece is coming to all countries if we do not stop them. Global governance is real, and it's not in our best interest, but in the best interest of the controlling countries and corporations funding the UN. Just look at Quebec and their Agenda 21. So what can we do to fix this? Well, as Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Well, the good news is that Canadians have that model, and we no longer need to remain their pawns. Combining Professor Lyon's power shift from party elites to informed citizens strategy and the Indigenous and Civil Unified Sovereign Enactment, which we call the i-ACUSE Citizens Convention of Consent Declaration contract form, teaches us just how simple it would be to get a solid, positive change that will bring back the power of all Canadians and First Nations in our governance and end its present corrupt political system. The i-ACUSE Indigenous and Civil Unified Sovereign Enactment mandate stands firm on the need for the implementation of the Citizens Convention of Consent Declaration contract that removes final decision-making authority from all levels of governance and ultimately placing it into the hands of the citizens and Indigenous nations at all levels of governance on each side of the TWO ROW WAMPUM Treaty. As a true direct democracy can only be had once the citizens are in control of the country. Through the Citizens Convention of Consent Declaration in contract form, we can change our false democracy to a true direct democracy without having to beg the MPs, MPPs, premiers, ministers, or the Prime Minister for permission. As our constitutional lack thereof, as Canadians have had that right since 1931 and again since 1982, which does give us the right to amend our constitution with changing the present faulty electoral system, thus ensuring that the parliamentary representatives and our politicians always remain true civil servants, guided by the people, as they should have been since the inception of the Statute of Westminster 1931, which in reality gave us our decolonization from the British Crown. And then, as stated by Pierre Elliott Trudeau during the repatriation of the 1982 Constitution, when he said that Canadians can now amend their Constitution. So why were we not given these rights? Actually, the better question would be, why have our politicians and our past and present governing bodies not given us a true democracy when they claim they work for us? And not be as it is now, being that their party leader becomes the final decision maker for everything in Canada or the provinces. How did we ever get to this point? But then again, why haven't we taken a stand ourselves within the past 33 years or more? Do you see the game? If the MPs and MPPs, ministers, and the Prime Minister did truly work for the people, we could have had direct democracy a very long time ago. Now we can clearly see that this is all a game of total control over the population, a dictatorship instead of a real democracy. The proof for decades upon decades that our voting system is problematic is a true indication that voting for politicians and political parties will only get you what they are allowed to give you, because they can't afford to lose control over us. Now, one thing to remember, and as Lucy Gonzalez Parson, the mother of nonviolent direct action, who advocated for nonviolent direct action a year before Gandhi advocated the tactics, said, "Never be deceived that the rich will allow you to vote away their wealth." And she is still right. Truth be known, we did. We give them that right every time we vote in their political party system as tacit consent, to rule over and even as now, dictate over us. One thing for certain is that we must admit that the creation of the political party electoral system was a very smart move on their behalf. But we can change that without needing their consent. The i-ACUSE website and our endeavors in the creation of this Convention of Consent and the sample two-row living Constitution draft are just a few examples of how we, the citizens, within Canada and the nations, can begin our new journey towards finally being the final decision makers in all levels of governance through a direct democracy model within which the people have decision power and not just one person who seems to be acting under corporate lobbying orders. The Convention of Consent is a binding agreement between the citizens who are ready for true justice by stating their claim in doing so. The creating of a new customized direct participatory democracy, along with a new constitution, should be the priority of all Canadians. There is virtually nothing to stop us, as we already have all the technologies available to us to make this happen in the immediate future. The only thing standing in our way is ourselves. So what do you say? Let's all power shift together, from partyocracy to constituency parliaments in Canada, at iacuse.com. See you there. Thank you.